Hey everybody, welcome back to another Professionally Incorrect. I'm Liam Clisham, and today we're going to do a Houdini quick tip on the somewhat new volume adjust fog SOP. That's a mouthful, but in short, if you've been playing around with any of the attribute adjust SOPs that have been introduced, I think around Houdini 18 moving forward and adding more each release, this came out in Houdini 19, and I'm only learning about it as of yesterday because I was working on something completely unrelated to this and saw it out of the corner of my eye. I was like, is that really what I think it is? And sure enough, I went down a rabbit hole, and now there's a tutorial coming out on it because I just found it so fascinating. So I'm going to walk through three different setups. We've got this one here with this S kind of disintegrating, and then I've got another one over here, which is nothing really fancy, which I clearly messed something up as I was doing this. Let me reactivate this up here. What did I do? I scaled this down. That's why. Like so. So you can see we're driving this from an object right there. And then we've got another one over here that's kind of like this face melt thing going on. Like so. I'm imagining like acid being poured on somebody's skin or something along those lines. So yeah, some fun stuff that we can do with this. So just in short, what's happening is the volume adjust fog, which I'm going to just call volume adjust for the rest of the video, that's way too much of a mouthful, is like a volume VOP or a wrangle with all the tools that you want right at the surface level. I think if you dive in, it's even just like, yeah, basically a volume wrangle with everything ported out to the top. So yeah, it's just a really nice, easy to use, user-friendly setup. I guess easy to use and user-friendly are one and the same, but you get my point. It packages everything up nice into this little UI element here. So super excited that this exists now and don't have to dive into VOPs or do wrangles and all that. All right, so yeah, where do I want to start? I guess there's nothing fancy going on up here. I'll break it down for anyone interested, but just a quick little font SOP with the letter S in it. You can use whatever you want, shape, whatever. Remeshing it to get some better topology as I go into extrude, and then I'm beveling it and doing a match size to move it up here and scale it up just a little bit to 1, like so. Nothing really fancy. And you're probably saying, well, it's going into a VDB anyway. Why do we care? I don't know. Just I might use it in the future for something else, so why not get set up ahead of time just for the sake of? What if I want to do like some particles coming off here or something? Who knows? So that's why. But yeah, we're basically gonna throw it in a VDB from polygons and kill all the work that we put into this. It's kind of useless, but anywho, we are gonna eventually move up to some nicely sized voxels. I guess you can start with some pretty low res versions like this and it'll be fine. We can take a look at it like this and then we'll work back up just for speed purposes. And I guess the other thing worth doing is lowering your bands as well. It kind of depends on the object that you're working with. For this, I found that there was some weird banding happening, mostly because of how font SOPs and typography works inside Houdini. So that's why I lowered these down. But yeah, to each their own. Your mileage may vary, whatever's saying. But yeah, something else to keep in mind is that these do not work with normal SDFs. You have to be working with a fog VDB. I don't know if it's coming in the future, but I imagine it's just because it's easier to manipulate. I don't know the reasoning why, but I've had a great time working with it, and you can still go back to this style. You can still convert to an SDF and go back to polygons and all that. But for the time being, this is just for adjusting fog, and maybe that will update in the future. So I guess for the purposes of learning, I should throw down a standard volume adjust like so. Look at this. And what you're going to get is up here just general stuff. If you want to blend with a constant or use volume like so, we can talk about that in a little bit. Your volume name, which we're getting from right here, and we're going to use a different one over here in a little bit, and we'll talk about that. And some pre-process, post-process stuff. I'm not really using it, but basically if you're subtracting or multiplying, you might have voxels that go above or below 0 and 1. So if you want to clamp those, or if you want to add more or scale up your numbers, etc., this is where you're going to do it in post-process, and then you can get the complement here or down here, and then this is just overwrite the initial values with some stuff that you're going to adjust down here anyway. There might be a purpose for it. In this use case, I don't really find a purpose for it. So yeah. What's next? I guess we'll talk about different operations, and then we'll go into patterns. Operations, all the same ones that you would find anywhere else: add, subtract, multiply, minimum, maximum, etc. And then pattern types, we have constant, which you're just adding a constant value, subtracting a constant value, multiplying constant value, etc. You can see how it's getting more saturated in there because it's adding more value into the voxels. If you did multiply, it would multiply against those. So if there's 0 in there, it wouldn't actually be adding anything to it. While with add, if there's 0 in there, it would go up to 10. If there's already 1, it would go up to 11, so on and so forth. Math. What else? Random. So it's basically taking the amplitude and adding it randomly across all the voxels here. So I'm randomly adding up to 10 across your voxels there, subtracting, multiplying, so on and so forth. Noise, kind of like random, but you get to pick your noise instead. So let's say I want to go like that, and maybe I'll do 0 centered instead so we can actually see the negative areas, and throw that up there, get some sharp edges. And yeah, that's basically it. Have all your noise types down here. Obviously no curl noise. They're usually never up at the top level like this. And then fog volume, which is what we're talking about over here, using a fog volume object to mask out areas, hence the name mask right there. You can remap it if you just want to remap your volume. Let's do positive, and I'll keep this at 1, and then enable remap like so. You can even control the step size like that. What else? Line, which is super fun. I'll talk about that in a second. Radial, and then bounding box. So before I go into line and radial, let's do bounding box. It's exactly what it sounds like, and you can control where it gets added in. This is on the X. Unless you want it on the Y, going up and down. Z, forward and back, like so. Which kind of is like how a line works, but a line gives you more control. So I guess this is a good segue into that, which I'm going to actually set it to subtract going forward. Do line. All right. So a line is drawing a line, like it sounds like. You can set your positions anywhere in here. For the sake of demonstration, I'm going to go to like 0.5, 0.5, and go forward and back. So why don't I do -1, and we'll do 1 here. It's like a weird viewport thing I don't like, is if I try to dolly around, it gives me some weird errors. So -1 and 1. Let me make sure I click off that. There we go. Yeah. So you can see we've basically got our full S in there, and I'm just going to grab another convert to pipe this in like so we can see what's happening. And if we want, we can start to pull this back and forth, but it doesn't have to be there. You can do it like this and kind of trim it this way and swing it around if you want. Get some cool fun effects going that way. And then radial is the exact same, but with a radius object or radial object. Oh my gosh, fingers work. And let me just delete this channel out of there like so. And so we're just going to scale this up, and it grows kind of spherically, even though it says radial object, which I, coming from Cinema 4D, tend to think of like a circular object, not a spherical object. Nuance stuff, but yeah, that's more of a spherical object, like so. And what else? I think that covers all of them, right? So yeah, grow that on like so, or subtract it off. And that leads us into the other side over here. So delete those out, come in here, I'm gonna turn this off because we're not using it yet, and turn this on. So this first one is just adding some noise. Well, actually it's multiplying some noise. I should be precise with that. And then I just set my min max. But you can also do zero centered. This actually might be better for what I want. I kind of like how connected this is. Let's see, min max. I don't know. I don't know if I have a preference. What if I go back down to 1 there? Crank that up. Sure. I guess I like that better now that I'm looking at it. But yeah, you can do all the same stuff, kind of manipulations once you convert it back. If you want to add a smooth in here, or erode it, or dilate it, or any of those things, once you convert it, you can still continue with those operations if you're used to that kind of stuff. But yeah, we've got now a noise in there. And down here, the only thing that we're doing is controlling how that noise falls off or is added in, etc., etc. And I think I must have been messing around before recording this, because this should actually be subtract. And yeah, this kind of just grows on like that. And you'll see it doesn't look the same as what I was showing before, and that's because we just don't have enough resolution to work with. So if I go down to 0.5 again, this should start to come back together. And I'm probably going to need to adjust some of this in here. So, and I'll give it a little bit more amplitude like that. I think 2, I actually want to have it that way, so it eats off. Yep. So I just kind of need to find a sweet spot for this in here, and we'll eat that off like so. And that's good. I don't think that's exactly where I had it before, but you can kind of tweak it and go however. That really, I think if I did add and then reverse this, I would do the same thing. Yep, it's doing the exact same thing. And as we get up here, looks like these areas are just clamped a little too much, so those are coming back in like so, and then we'll convert it back to the mesh there, and we get that cool little organic growth thing. The only thing that I'm doing in here is I lowered the ISO value just like the bare minimum, because I was noticing as it was reshaping, I was getting some weird banding in here. I don't know if we can still see it. A little bit in there, but I think that's just because I need to adjust my ramp a little bit. Oh, maybe not. Huh. Weird. Not sure why I'm getting that in there. If I take off this, does that go away? Okay, that's weird. I didn't notice that before. But yeah, you can go in and adjust your detailing and get it however you want. Let's try 0.5. There we go. Bring some of that back in there. Looks like most of the banding is gone. Cool. All right. So that's the simple setup, is you set your density and VDBs from polygons, or however you want to build your density. Then you can manipulate them down here, adding in some noise, or if you don't want any noise, you can just do this and it'll eat away nice and smooth. Have fun. Stack them up, play around, see what you get. Now I wanted to talk about the volume. Where is it? Fog volume, right there. And working with a mask and the weirdness that this is a little bit. So you can see I've got a blend up here, then the adjustment down here. And it's just a weird little setup how they've got this going on. So I'm going to throw this constant in here, and I guess I'll do add like so. If I come over here, I had a mountain going, but I think it's easier to keep that off. You can see that anywhere this volume is, it is being multiplied in there. So if I move this around, we get the masking based on that. So the mask is coming from here. I've got voxel size relatively high, like there's no real detail in here. Calling this density, or changing this from density to mask, and then just transforming it around and merging it in here. So this is where things get a little bit weird. One can still see the original volume, which makes it difficult to work with. So the way around that is to throw down delete and put your volume name in there, and I will delete it out so that way you can see what you're doing. And two, so we've got it blended up here with the mask, right? But then if we come down here and we do fog volume with a mask down here, I don't know why I have the scale up so high, it's essentially doing the same thing. And please comment below if I'm misunderstanding how this works. But here's fog volume, going back to a constant, blend, and mask. Like, am I guess maybe the masked version is a little, well, that might be because I'm not set at 1. So let's look again. Mask, blend volume, right there. And fog volume set to 1. I might be wrong, but they look identical to me. So I don't really understand the purpose. They seem to be doing the same thing. So yeah, please comment below if you know why, or if you figure out something after watching this, if you're messing around like, oh, I figured out what's different. The only thing I can think of is like there's offsets in here that, like, you know, you're offsetting from the geometry, and then you can scale right here. I guess you get more control. I don't know. But essentially, instead of using this radial object to grow it, we're using this radial object instead. And come down here to convert. And if I do the same thing, if I grow this up, see, get the same thing. I think the only thing that I'm doing here is I'm adding instead of multiplying. And yeah, basically getting the same thing. No, that was not right. What did I do over here? Add radial zero centered. Okay, let's try that. Ah, okay. So that might be some of the difference too. If I'm using the blend, I will have more options down below, where this, I am subject to what this is doing. Interesting. Learning as I'm making a tutorial. So let's turn this off, and we'll just go to constant, like so. Go to a blend object, mask, and I guess, it's very interesting. Can I do remap? There we go. If I do remap, then I can get my zero centered. And now it's asking me what I should remap, and the source is mask. This is so strange. Density. Huh. All right. Another one of my tangents that has happened in these tutorials. I was hoping to get a very similar effect, and not quite. So if I go like this, let's work through this really fast. Add is giving us what's happening over here, which makes sense, add. But then when I take it away, like so, it's not actually eating everything away this time, which is interesting to me. So if I bring this back down, it adds everything back in. If I go to subtract, it just subtracts those things. How about multiply? Very interesting. Density, mask, compute range, not really changing much. Crank up the amplitude, I kind of get closer. All right, this is worth me exploring a little bit more. You get the basis of how it works, but it's not working the exact same way as I was expecting. I was really thinking this would mimic the same way over there. And when I was testing it, I thought it was. but I guess not. Let me just double check the values. Amplitude 3, set this to 3. I'm gonna go back down to 0 here. Do I need to... Very interesting. If I clamp this like I was before, on the other one. All right, whatever. We'll move on. Just weird. So next on this side, again, not a fancy setup, just taking some test head geometry, deleting out the mouth bag that's in there, and then I'm doing like a quick, really small extrude in because I want to have this lip in there and close it off. You could also just use a polyfill and close it all together, but I wanted this skin-like effect. Then I'm reversing the normals there. And I also am bringing this over here to be inside once we get this match size too. So you'll see this one sits right there, and then this one is just slightly inside, so we get that skin peeling effect. And same thing, VDB right there, not like super low density or high density, it's kind of just somewhere in between. And we're just adding some noise and then controlling this with a line this time. So going from the front of the face back, converting it to a VDB like so. Doing a little reshape just to erode it a little bit more. Converting it back to polygons and like so. Now we've got a cool little skin peel like that. I'll just load the cache so it loads a little bit faster. Yeah, still a little bit weirded out about what happened over here, but I appreciate everyone for going on that tangent with me. Hopefully I can follow up in the comments or the description below about why this was happening, or just put like a little pop-up up here. But yeah, very, very interesting, this whole workflow with the mask versus fog volume in there. I want to figure out why it works the way that it works. Anywho, as always, thank you for subscribing. Thanks for liking, commenting, interacting, all that good stuff. If you have any questions, hit me up below in the comments, or you can find me on social media, Liam Clisham, basically everywhere, and liam@531.com for email. And I'll see you probably in a few weeks. I don't know. These things are pretty inconsistent, but sometime soon. Thanks, everybody.